everyone, welcome back to another episode of Yarn Time. I know it's literally been years and years, but I was going through some old stuff on my iPad recently and I saw the thumbnails that I used to make for these videos and I was like, oh my god, like I should get back to it. And there's been things that have happened obviously in the past few years, but also recently that have really made me get back into knitting like very hardcore. I have been knitting pretty steadily this whole time. Like I haven't really like put it down necessarily, minus the summer months, which is just like I don't really like knitting when it's so hot outside. But other than that, I've been pretty consistent, and so I won't do like this whole update of like I don't even know how long it's been. It's been I think probably over 2 years. I think maybe almost 3 years. So obviously I have done quite a bit of knitting in the interim, but I thought I would kind of just start afresh a little bit and just talk about like what have I finished more recently and what am I currently working on, because I am working on a lot right now, and what are my plans. And it is already December, which is crazy. So it's almost the end of 2025. So I also want to, if I do manage to keep this up, talk about like my knitting plans for next year, just in general, like what do I want to accomplish, things like that. So I'm gonna be probably talking quite a bit, so you know, grab a drink, grab your knitting if you have something on your needles, and settle in. I have this I have this Miffy mug that I got from Marshall's. I was at Marshall's when I was home for Thanksgiving with my mom because we love Marshall's, and they had these Miffy mugs. And I actually bought a bunch because they had, I think, like 3 different designs. But this one I kept for myself because it has this little guy on it, which I thought was so cute. So yeah, it was super festive. I got one for, actually I got 2 for my brother and his fiance, and then I got one for my boyfriend. I don't know if they have them at all Marshalls or if it's kind of location dependent, but if you happen to live near Marshalls, I would go check if you like Miffy, because so cute. But yeah, I got my rosy Earl Grey today, and I wrote some notes for myself on my iPad because I actually tried to film this a few weeks ago, but I didn't have any notes, so I was just blabbing and I couldn't remember like any of the yarn that I used. So let's get into it. We'll start with finished objects as usual, and then I will also shout out what I'm wearing right now. It's actually a little bit warm in my apartment right now to be wearing this, but it is really cold outside. I live in New York and it's like really getting cold, and me and my friends are also going upstate this weekend, so it's gonna be freezing. So I'm gonna bring this guy with me. This is the cardigan, I think number 8 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. I'll put the information in the description box just in case I get anything wrong, because again, I do have notes, but you know, sometimes I might misspeak or something like that. But yeah, so this is a super chunky, oversized cardigan. I feel like if you spent any time on Ravelry, you've probably seen this floating around. I finished this last winter, and it's been a really great cold weather piece. It is 1 strand of berroco ultra alpaca natural in, I believe the color is jasmine rice. And it is held with 1 strand of this hand-dyed suri alpaca lace from Big Little Yarn Co. I don't believe that she still sells this particular colorway, but I will also put that in the description box. But yeah, so it has this like kind of nice yellowy color with some speckles of like orange and green. So it's really cute. And I think I knit this as is. I don't remember making any modifications. I also link my Ravelry page so you can check my finished projects, and I always put pretty detailed notes on there. But one thing I did do is for the pockets, I added these little puppy buttons. So the pockets do not normally come with buttons, but I had these exactly two vintage puppy buttons that I got from an Etsy seller, and I just thought, I mean, like, I don't know where else I would use them. I literally only bought them because they were so cute. And there's 2 of them, so I was like, this is perfect. I'll put them on the pockets. And honestly, I don't really use the pockets for anything because it is such a like soft sweater. I find that putting anything too heavy in the pockets kind of just like sags everything down. But you know, you can throw a little something in there, and then you got the buttons, so then it's nice and secure, which is great. So yeah, this is just something that I've been wearing like around the house. It is quite cold in my apartment usually. I just happen to also be wearing a wool turtleneck under this, so I'm just like, I am warm. I'm toasty right now. But it's been really good, and it is a pretty thick, chunky gauge, so it works up pretty quickly. So if you're looking to do a nice staple cardigan that still has like some nice touches, like I really like this double knit button band. I think that always looks really professional. I would really recommend it. Okay, so now on to some more recent finished objects. I haven't blocked any of these, so excuse me, they are still waiting to have their ends woven in. So I'll start with something that I've been meaning to make for a while, and I actually cranked this out very recently during Thanksgiving. I was home at my parents' house for about a week and I just had nothing to do. So I went ahead and whipped up this balaclava. It's been scrunched inside the backpack that I was using to pack all my stuff, so it's a little wrinkly, but I will block it out. And I have been meaning to make one because I had made one also freehanded. This is freehand, I didn't use the pattern. I made one with the leftover yarn from my terrazzo sweater, which was done in that Noro Silk Garden sock solo. And I had, you know, quite a bit of leftover yarn, and I made a balaclava with that. But when I blocked it, because it grew so much, it became more of like a hood, which is, you know, I like that too. That has its place. But I didn't like how it was gapping so much around the face, because actually that makes it quite vulnerable to the wind. So I was like, oh, I really want to make one that's more fitted to the face. So like, you know, when I'm walking my dog, I could throw it on and it's a lot warmer. So here, let me check this one on. So you can see this one is just a lot closer around the face. It's really simple. I just start with like this top panel and then pick up around it and then just knit down. And I did this all in single ribbing because I had only brought one set of needles with me to my parents' house. It was just one set of, I think size 8 that are 5mm. And so I was like, I don't know, I don't have like a smaller size needle to do separate ribbing, so I'll just do the whole thing in ribbing, which I think still looks nice, if I do say so myself. And this is, let me check my notes, this was done in one strand of Hobbii Winter Glow, which is their kind of like self-striping acrylic wool worsted blend. It comes in these like huge, I think like 200-gram cakes. And then I held it with one strand of Lang Alpaca Superlight, which I think is discontinued actually, because I was going through my stash at my parents' house. I've left a lot of yarn there, and I found a bunch of different colors of this Lang Superlight, but none of them were a sweater's quantity. So I was like, what's going on here? And I was thinking of maybe replenishing some of it, but then I looked online and I think they've discontinued it and they've replaced it with something else that's like kind of similar, maybe a little bit better. But anyway, so I only had a couple balls of this. It was in the color sand. So I was like, you know what, I'll just make a balaclava if I have time to get around to it. Maybe I'll do like a hand warmer set to match. But I only had time to do the balaclava before I had to come back, and I didn't want to bring this huge cake of the Hobbii Winter Glow back with me. So I just ended up with this. But I'm super happy with it. I think it will keep me very warm. I was actually kind of hoping to bring this on my upstate trip, but I was too lazy and I haven't obviously woven in any of the ends. So I'll have to wait for me to come back. But I think because it is half acrylic, I'm going to take this off. It shouldn't grow too much because that obviously was my concern with my previous attempt. So it will hopefully stay about the same size. And blocking it will just make it, you know, a little bit more neat and, you know, straighten out the ribbing a little bit. So yeah, super happy with this. I really like this colorway. It has, I don't remember the name. I don't think the Hobbii Winter Glow really have, like, they don't really have names. So I think it is just kind of named after what the colors are. So like coral and sand and rose and just, you know, variations between those. So yeah, I think it's nice. And I actually have a terrazzo sweater also knit in a different colorway of this combo, which I really like too, but I accidentally put it in the washing machine. I think last year, and so it felt it quite a bit. So I don't really wear it anymore, but if you are looking for a really affordable option that has this sort of like more subtle self-striping, similar to the Noro yarns that most people use for like the terrazzo, etc. I think this is a really good option. They definitely still have this on their site. Really affordable. And the Lang Superlight also, I remember I bought it because it was more affordable. Okay, so that was my first little project. I'll move on to my next finished object, which is the Waffle Loop sweater by Other Loops. I don't know if she goes by like a different name on Ravelry or anything like that, but I found her on Instagram, I think, like years ago, and I just really, really like the design of this particular pullover. So it is all this waffle texture for most of it, but then it has these really nice variety of cables in the front. And there's just a lot of other details that I like on this sweater, which I'll get to in a second. But just for the details first, excuse me. This is in one strand of Berroco Ultra Alpaca in the color Barley. I really like Ultra Alpaca. I really like alpaca in general, but I like that they mix it with wool so it keeps its shape a little bit better. And this barley color is nice. Like in certain lights, it's gray, and in certain lights, it's more beige or brown. So I like that as a really versatile neutral color. And yeah, so for some of the details, like I like, for example, the ribbing on like the seams and stuff. So this is like the shoulder seam ribbing, and as well as on the underarm, like the side seam also has a good chunk of this 1x1 ribbing. I just think that's like a nice little detail that it's not just the waffle texture all the way around. And the back is the same as the front. So let's see, this is the back. So the back is the same as the front. One thing to note about this pattern is it's not super noticeable when you're wearing it, in my opinion, but the back is, I guess, significantly longer than the front. So it does have a bit of a high-low effect because you can see the waffle panel on the back is just quite a bit longer than on the front. I don't know if you can tell. I feel like you can tell, at least by a couple of repeats. So I think this is a pretty easy fix if you don't like that. It's just to cut out some of the repeats on the back. But I think it's nice. I don't mind it at all. I didn't modify that part. In terms of modifications I did make, mostly on the sleeve. So I actually originally was a little bit, hesitant to do this sleeve shaping because it is a little bit more of like, not really quite a balloon shape, but you can see the decreases start actually about halfway through the sleeve. So there is a little bit more of a noticeable slant, but I don't really mind it, to be honest. I think it looks nice when worn. But the one thing that I did change was by the time I finished the last decrease, the sleeve was already quite long, and it called for, I think, at least a few more waffle repeats after that. And then the cuff I also shortened. So I skipped those, that last bit at the end. So right after the last decrease, started the ribbing, and I only did, I don't remember, maybe like 10-ish rounds of ribbing, which is, I believe, less than what the pattern calls for, because at that point it was already hitting my wrist. And I know with the alpaca, it does grow, I would say, at least about a size worth. So that's just something to take note of if you try this pattern. And I think there were other people on Ravelry mentioning that being an issue as well. It's just like the sleeves being ginormous. But other than that, I don't believe there were any mods. I knit it to the same length as the recommendation, and it is kind of just like hits at the hip, and I will probably, again, grow a little bit more than that once I block it. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. It was a lot of fun. I really just like the neatness of the cables. I think this is a great starter project for someone getting into cables that isn't just like an all-over single cable situation, which can kind of get tedious after a while, I think. So this is fun, and I think it'll be really nice and warm because of the squishy waffle texture. So I'm really happy with this. I just have to also weave in the ends and block it, so that's going to be That's going to be a journey. So yeah, that's my second finished object. Let me put that away. So I think that's actually everything I finished recently, including what I'm wearing right now, which I mentioned earlier. So let's move on to works in progress. So I have quite a few actually, so I'm gonna maybe try with like the smallest and go, I don't know if that works. So I have one hat that I'm working on, because I asked my boyfriend, I was like, oh, like, would you want a hat? Because I've been trying to get into this sort of thing, like balaclavas, hats, maybe even mittens, just as like smaller projects that can be finished a little quicker and don't take the same investment as a full sweater. So I found a free pattern called aptly named boyfriend hat on Ravelry, and so I'll link that below. But it is just a 3x2 ribbing, and I'm basically just knitting a tube and then closing at the top, which is basically what a beanie is. So this is just like a fun little project. We have about the same size head, so I've just been like trying it on myself. And so right now it is long enough to be a beanie as is if I started the decreases now. But I do want to do kind of like a fold over brim. Oh gosh. Yeah, I think that just looks a little more cozy. So I'm gonna be going for, I think it's about 9 inches or so before starting the decreases. And I like the way that this pattern has sort of these staggered decreases. I'll show a picture here. And I think that just like looks a little neater than some of the other hat decreases that I've seen, or at least it looks a little bit more interesting. So I'm excited to try that. I think I'm gonna bring this with me on my upstate trip just as like a little project. And I'm knitting this in Drops, Nepal, because it was also another find going through my parents' house, my stash there. I think I had purchased this originally to do the zipper sweater by Petite Knit, but I had not purchased anywhere near enough. I think this was very early on when I first started knitting. I didn't really know how to estimate how much yarn I would need, I guess. So I had only purchased 6 skeins, which is nowhere near enough because one skein is only like 80 yards or something like that. So I was like, what do I do with this? I don't want to buy another 6 to 8 skeins just by itself, because being in the US trying to buy international brands is really annoying because of all the tariffs. So I decided I would just make some small things with the stash that I have. And I think this is the 2nd skein. And I have only just started it really. So I'm thinking it'll probably just use up the rest of this, maybe like a little bit more perhaps. And yeah, so it's like a nice little 2 skein-ish project. And oh, and this is in the color, I think it's called beige, but it's number 300. So yeah, a nice little fun project. Hoping to get that done soon so my boyfriend can start wearing it, because apparently he has no hats that he likes. And so that should be finished soon. Next whip is a fun one. I had this in my Ravelry favorites for ages, and I had swatched a different yarn combo for it, and I just wasn't really happy with it. So this is the Athens cardigan by Soup Knits. I think that's her handle. And so I'll just put a picture of what it looks like here. But this one had been, like I said, on my list for a long time. And I had swatched it in 1 strand of Holst Supersoft. 2 strands of Holst Supersoft. And that wasn't quite enough to get to gauge, because that's really more of like a DK weight, because it's a fingering, right? So fingering plus fingering is DK. And it's really supposed to be more of like a heavy worsted. So I added another strand of their TT Kaka. And I just didn't like the color combination, and I didn't like how bulky the fabric was. So I sort of left it for a while because I wasn't sure what I would end up using. And then I returned to it recently and had, I don't know why I didn't think of this before. I had a sweater's quantity of suri alpaca lace from Inspire a Mind in the light beige color. And I had a cone of super soft in almond and a cone of super soft in ecru. So I combined those, and that made a really nice kind of like champagne oatmeal color. And the drape I thought was so much better. And so I went ahead and started the cardigan with that combo, and I am so happy that I did, because it is such a nice, pretty warmish neutral color, and it's also just been such a fun knit. There's all sorts of cute little details. Like, I really like this sort of I don't really even know what this is called. So this is like a slip with yarn in front on the back side, and then knit through the back loop on the front side, so it creates this kind of like twisted chain in the front. That's fun. And then there's the little baubles, which I had never done before, also a lot of fun. So I think this is going to just be like a really nice Aran cardigan for, again, like the holiday season, winter time. It's not very heavy, this yarn combo, because it's actually like pretty fluffy with the suri alpaca. And it does knit pretty close to gauge. I think I'm a little bit under, or a little bit over. So I sized up. I'm knitting a medium and hoping it to fit more like a small. But it is supposed to be oversized, so I think there's probably a lot of wiggle room there. And so yeah, this is the progress I've made so far. I've joined for the body, and so I think I'm gonna do, let's see, I have probably like 1.5 more diamond repeats to go. I went and picked up buttons for it in the fashion district recently, which was a lot of fun. And I'm just really excited to add another cardigan to the collection. I have this other store-bought cardigan that I've been just worn to death, and I've been hoping that this can kind of be like a replacement for it, because it is, again, like a really nice neutral, so you can kind of just throw it over everything or anything. And yeah, I've been really enjoying this, and I would really recommend this pattern. I think it's very clear, the charts are really clear, and it's just super charming. I was even thinking of maybe making it into like a pullover or something, like knitting another one and making it into a pullover. But I have a lot of other patterns that I want to try first. Moving on, my next, excuse me, my next whip is actually one that kind of doesn't have a pattern. So here, let me show you. I'm also just connected at the body for this. It doesn't really look like much right now, but the idea is I had been for ages wanting to do a sweater where all the seams are done in like a contrast color, and I was on the subway, I don't know, maybe like a few months ago, and the guy sitting next to me was wearing basically this idea, not in this color, but it was kind of like a yellowy sweater, but then the seams were done in this like gray. And I was like, oh, that really looks good. And so it renewed my determination to try and do this. Basically taking a sweater pattern that I already have done and I like the fit of, and it's like a gauge close to what I would want. And the Ingrid sweater actually kind of fit this requirement perfectly. I really like all the short row shaping on it. The drop shoulder is like also something that I want to do. The collar, the neck. So I basically just went and took the Ingrid sweater and all like the stitch counts and stuff, and I drafted just a plain stockinette version of it. I'm sure there are like probably dedicated stockinette sweater patterns out there, but I just thought, you know, why not just use something I already have and paid for and turn it into just a simple stockinette pullover, but with this contrasting edge detail. And so the only thing I have to show for right now is the cast on and pickup on the shoulder is in a different color. I'm hoping that it will block out a little bit smoother than how it already is, but you know, it's kind of an experiment that I'm doing. And at the very least, I get a sweater out of it. So this is done in Berroco Vintage, which is their acrylic, I think it's recycled acrylic, potentially. But yeah, it's their acrylic wool blend. And so it does feel a little acrylic-y in that it's like a little slick, I think, is how acrylic feels to me sometimes. But it overall is very soft and comfortable, and I think it's supposed to be machine washable, so I am a little curious to test that out. because I am someone who doesn't really enjoy all the intricacies of laundry. So hopefully it's sturdy enough to go through the wash. But this is in, the main color is in bird's egg, and then the contrasting color is in mushroom, which is sort of just like a beigey gray color. So the plan is to basically just do all of the edges in this mushroom color. So when I get to the end of the hem, to do the bind off in the contrasting color, to do the sleeve pickup in a contrasting color, etc., etc. And so I have this on my Ravelry, and I will be documenting my progress and hopefully updating with pictures. That is one thing I tend to forget. But yeah, I think this will be an interesting little experiment, and I am knitting this in a size small, and I think it's going to be pretty oversized, which is what I'm going for. So we'll see how that all ends up. So this is my last whip, I believe, and this one has been resting for a little bit, but I do want to try and get some good progress on it this winter time. I started this, I think, like 2 years ago for my mom, actually. I might have even mentioned it in... No, I don't know if I have. I was going to say I might have mentioned it in an old episode, but I'm not sure if I am getting that right. But this is the olive cardigan from Knitting for Olive, and I'm doing it in this really pretty kind of like pumpkin, how to say, like dark burnt orangey brown. And I have actually gone all the way to the end of the body, and so I'm just working on the ribbing right now. It's done in double rib, but this one I have really enjoyed. I will say, I think part of the reason I didn't make a lot of progress on it whenever I started it is, I think maybe two things. One is the color is just not my personal, I would say, color palette. And so it is a little bit on the darker side for me, or I would say darker and warmer, which does suit my mom very well, I think. If you guys follow that sort of like color theory, personal color stuff. And then the other thing is, I think I have sort of this lingering concern that it might be too small. I do imagine that this particular pattern will block out significantly because it is quite scrunched up as it is, and you know, it is a beautiful pattern. I just love this way that the leaves are formed on it. I mean, at least that's what they look like to me. And it is basically just increasing and decreasing, and so it is super simple to do, but it looks great, and like the kind of tessellating effect is super nice. But it seems small. And my mom and I are the same size in tops. So, I mean, I think it will fit me, but it may not just be as oversized as I had anticipated. So I'm hoping that it will be okay. I will be adding a button band to this. The original pattern does not call for a button band. I think that's like a little weird to me personally because I don't know. I'm not big on like the open front cardigan situation. I think it's nice to be able to button them as you would like. So I'm going to add a button band to it, and so that will add some width to the front at least. But I mean, we'll see. This is one definitely I am kind of curious to see how it goes. But yeah, I do have to finish off this ribbing, pick up the sleeves, etc., and then we'll just see what happens. Again, I feel like there are many questions to be answered after blocking for sure. But overall, really enjoy it. This is knit in Knitpicks Wool of the Andes in their persimmon heather, which is really a beautiful fall color, I think. And I do really like Wool of the Andes. I think it is, I don't know, it seems to be of its quality and similar, the most affordable option for just like a 100% Peruvian wool. And it is fairly soft. I don't know if I would necessarily wear it directly against skin, but for a cardigan, I think it's a great option. So yeah, so this is my last current whip. I have, of course, a lot of other old whips that have been hibernating for a while. I won't mention those until they become active again. But yeah, so that's everything that I've been working on recently, and by recently I mean within the past few months, since the weather has gotten cooler. I just am not really one for knitting when it is warm outside. I think it just feels stuffy. But now that it's cold, it is knitting season for sure. And so in that spirit, I'm going to talk about some knitting plans that I have. So we will start with patterns that I'm planning on making. So I have one that I have already purchased the pattern for, so that one's definitely going on the needles, and it is the, am I saying this correctly, Oksusu sweater by Berry Knitting, and I think this is just so adorable. It has these like sort of, I guess there's kind of look like stalks of corn on the back, which I think is really fun, and that's what apparently the pattern is named for in Korean, is that's what oksusu means, is the corn. But I actually ended up buying this pattern because I had this one and then the next one that I'm going to mention kind of on the queue for myself, and I sent the two to my boyfriend and I asked him which one he liked better, and he said he liked the oksusu better. So I was like, oh, I'll just make that for him, because I've been kind of on this Aran sweater search now that I've gotten a taste for it with the Athens cardigan. So I went ahead and bought some yarn for it. I did another holst garn haul because they were doing a sale for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I think it was like 20% off or something. And it's already super affordable. If you haven't bought holst garn before, I really recommend taking a look at their selection. So I went ahead and bought their version of a, I think it's called blow yarn, where there's kind of like a outer mesh and then the yarn is on the inside. So their version is called Cielo, and I got it in the color Sparrow. So I'll show a picture here. So that's my plan. It is, I bought it specifically because it looks kind of similar to the color that they used in the sample, which I think is Japard Puno. But I found that just a little bit too expensive, and I think this one will be a nice, more affordable alternative. So I am really excited to try this pattern. That will probably be the next thing that I cast on. I will probably force myself to finish one of my whips before I do that, but we'll see. It's tough. It's tough to see one thing all the way through before starting another one, as many of you I'm sure know. So that is one kind of for sure locked in plan that I have. And then I have a couple things that I'm kind of eyeing. So also when I was back at my parents', I found in my stash some more yarn from Big Little Yarn Company. And I had, I guess, bought 3 skeins of their British alpaca fingering in, I forget what the color is called because it's probably discontinued. But it is this kind of like murky brown, purplish color. I should have brought it with me to show you guys, but it is put away. But I was thinking of what to do with it, and I was thinking, oh, why don't I try making like kind of like a blouse? Because I have been pretty much only making sweaters. And so I went and looked through some options, and I settled on this everyday loop blouse, also by Other Loops. And again, I just really like the kind of little details that she has, like, because it is kind of a plain stockinette blouse, but it has fun little raglan and side seam details that I think just make it a little bit more interesting and special, especially considering, you know, it's like a nice yarn. It is a hand-dyed yarn. So I do want to make something nice with it. It is not in fingering gauge though, however, so I also, in my holst garn haul, I picked up some Coast, which is their, I think it's their wool cotton blend. And so it's supposed to be a bit softer than just the super soft. And this is in a warm brown color, I believe. And so that's still in the mail. So hopefully when I get that, I can also start working on this everyday blouse, because I think that'll be like a nice little light sweater to have, and it will be a nice way to show off the hand-dyed yarn, and also maybe tone it down a little bit with the extra strand of the Coast and give it more of like an overall brown tone, because I've been really into brown lately. So yeah, so that's another one where I have the yarn, or the yarn is coming, and so I just need to buy the pattern and get started. And then after that, I don't have anything really like set in stone. I have like a couple different patterns that I've been eyeing, so I'm going to kind of just run through those a little bit more quickly. One is a diamond Aran sweater by, I don't know how to pronounce this, but they're a Japanese designer and their handle is Hello Hig Life. But this one I also found on Instagram, and I just like it, sort of a modern take on the more classic, like, I don't know, Aran sweater. And so that's one that I've been looking at. I'm thinking of maybe getting some Cascade Eco Wool, which is what their sample is knitted in, and trying that. One more item that I want to do is, speaking of kind of like plain stockinette pullovers, I came across the Rhodes pullover by, I forget her name, I think it's Ozetta. And so that's what that looks like. And I just really like this sort of more rustic take on it, with the double ribbing on the sleeves and the hem and the little rolled edge, I think is like a really nice touch. So I am really curious to try this one out, and I think I will be using Cascade 220 for that, because that's a yarn that I've been wanting to try for a while. And I haven't used it yet, actually. So I think those are all the ones that I have floating around in my mind right now. Definitely not going to get to all of them, not even just in this season, but for the next few seasons. But maybe some inspo for you guys if you're looking for your next project. Those are things that I've been eyeing. And I'm really excited. So yeah, I've been blabbing on for a while. Just excited to share what I've been working on because it's been so long. And I am really curious to hear what everyone is working on right now that it's like hopefully a nice cozy knitting season wherever you live. But yeah, like I said, I will be doing my best to be updating more videos. I think hopefully once I get back in the groove of things, it'll be a little bit easier. To be honest, filming them is not really that much work. It's like just me sitting here talking to myself for 40 minutes. It's the editing that obviously takes the longest. But we'll see. Fingers crossed. Again, it is just fun to be able to share what I'm working on and feel like I'm part of the greater knitting community here on YouTube. So, give me some encouragement, and hopefully we'll be able to get some more activity on the channel. Because, yeah, I do really want to talk more about plans and my knitting goals and stay updated, and also get back to seeing what other people are working on as well. So yeah, I think that's enough talking for now. I do also have to finish packing for my trip. But yeah, really happy to be back. I'm really excited to share what I've been working on, to hear what you guys are working on, and also just excited to be knitting again and improving my skills, trying new things. I was going to say buying more yarn, but I really shouldn't do that. Or I should do it more thoughtfully. That was my conclusion after I went through all my stash at my parents', because I wasn't even able to bring it all back to my apartment because there was so much of it. So yes, definitely being more thoughtful about consumerism in general is how I would say. But yeah, I hope you all have a lovely holiday season. I hope you all are enjoying what you're working on, and yeah, I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye.